Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Behold, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. This is a quotation from the Bible. Jesus advising his followers. I think that quotation has got a lot of resonance in Zimbabwe. In 1980, the nation celebrated the end of colonial rule. As much as the people thought they were honoring their liberators, today, 46 years after independence, ordinary Zimbabweans have yet to test what freedom and liberty means. The men and women they welcomed as their liberators have turned out to be wolves in sheep's clothing. And that really is the nightmare scenario. Zimbabwe has never held free, fair, and credible elections in 46 years and counting of our independence. Because the Zanu PF thugs, the liberators, never allowed the people to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. In 1980, at the Lancaster House talks the year before, Zanu PF had agreed that the two liberation parties, ZANU and ZAPU, would withdraw their operatives from the field during the campaign period for the elections. ZANU PF agreed to that, but by the time they landed back in Zimbabwe, they'd made up their mind that they would only withdraw some of their freedom fighters from the field. The rest would be asked to remain there with clear and specific instructions. Their campaign message to the people would be to tell them that if ZANU PF does not win the elections, the Bush war would continue. One man, one vote, out of the window. And the people have never recovered. They voted, of course, to end the Bush war. And as soon as ZANU PF got into power, they sought to consolidate their power by creating a de facto one-party state that has ruled the country to this day. That is the tragic reality of Zimbabwe. Benjamin, welcome to the program.
Good day to you, Wilbert, and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. You know, it becomes very difficult to find a starting point when it comes to the Zimbabwean problem, which now has turned into problems. Why is it difficult? It's because we have been saying the same thing over and over again. We have been warning people about things that are developing and are happening way in advance, but people, instead of taking the warning seriously, instead of, seeing the the bigger picture. They would rather insult, and call us names and so forth. Look, every time we have an election or we are heading into an election, we have different observer missions, from different organizations, SADC, EU, Commonwealth, just to mention a few. They come through and watch how we conduct our business before, during, and after. And after they have compiled all the data and information, they then give us a report. And I must emphasize and say, this report has always been damning. Time and time after again, Zimbabweans have been told that the way you are conducting elections does not meet international standards, and of late does not even meet your constitutional standards. In essence, they are saying your elections are flawed and illegal. But Zimbabweans, in their own wisdom, have decided to ignore the warning and have continued to participate in illegal elections. Now, fast forward, we come to today. We are busy now saying what Zanu PF is doing to the Constitution is illegal. We need to protect the Constitution. Now, that's very puzzling. Look, somebody has been telling you what Zanu PF has been doing to the Constitution is illegal and has been, violating the Constitution all this time. And look, we were willing participants in the violation. We were willing participants in doing illegal things to the Constitution. Now, because it now takes away our participation, we now want to call it illegal. That's crazy. That's absurd. We have been warned, don't do this. If we were so worried about the Constitution, we would have said, hold on a minute. This is our sacred document. We need to fix this. And told Zanu PF, we demand reforms, because after being given the reports, we are also given recommendations, corrections, reforms. And guess what? For the past 25 years, we've been getting these. We have done absolutely nothing. Not even one of the reform, has been implemented. At one time, we got given 23 reforms. Not one was implemented. And it was the opposition that were tasked to implement those reforms. We have a serious problem where we have been going around and around in circles. Now we are getting dizzy because it's getting worse. We are spinning even faster. And Zanu PF has just shown that they can really take advantage of all the madness because we are willing participants.
The Zimbabwe Constitution Amendment number 26 that was approved by the cabinet on Tuesday seeks one important change. They want now the president to be elected by members of parliament and not by the people. Some people may think this is a minor change. It is not. I'd like you to listen to this recent video of Mawarire explaining how Zanu PF has been rigging past elections in the past.
And what really matters for us is the attempt by the president and his political party to illegally extend his stay in office. I think there's nothing bigger than that, because that has fundamental implications to the political stability of the country, to the economic stability of the country. So we cannot never discuss anything else other than the illegal attempt by the president to extend his stay in office until 2030. That's what we need to discuss. And that has been the preoccupation even of his political party. And that has been the preoccupation of his political party, because if you look at the October Zanu PF conference in Mutare, the first resolution was to mandate the leader of government in parliament to expedite moves to change the constitution and allow the president to illegally stay in office until 2030. So that's what we need to discuss. And that's why I was saying we need to discuss it with considerations to the factors that are mitigating, the factors that are helping the president or nudging the president to want to extend his stay in office beyond the constitutional limit of 2028. That's why I say there is a political dimension to that. There is a business dimension to that, a business quasi-criminal intention to that. But there is also a religious, occultic explanation to why he wants to stay in power. And that religious and occultic explanation hasn't been exhaustively discussed.
Okay, I will not play that anymore. I think the bit where he also explains that 2018, for instance, Mnangagwa only won 32% of the vote. And the army intervened to help him over the line. They had to rig the presidential vote to get him over the line. That is at the heart of the reason why they want to change the constitution to allow only members of parliament. Zanu PF, in that video, actually, Mawarire implies that the parliamentary vote was free, fair, and credible, which is nonsense, because there was no verified voters roll, there was no free media, etc., etc. But the point is, Zanu PF has found it easier to rig the parliamentary vote because it's just a constituency one. But when you're talking of rigging the presidential one, that becomes a more complex process, one that they found very difficult to hide. For 18, where Mawarire, like I said, admitted that Mnangagwa only got 32% of the votes, and the Zanu PF vote rigging machinery had to step in to get him to win the presidency. When that process was challenged in the Constitutional Court in 2018, one of the most revealing points was that there were 16 polling stations with identical votes cast for Mnangagwa, identical votes cast for Chamisa, identical spoiled votes. And one other interesting point is that in each of those, Mnangagwa not only won, but won very well. It was obvious. What had happened there is those were double entries. There were no duplicate polling station. It was just the V11 of the A polling station A was entered twice to help Mnangagwa's vote increase and get him over the line. The regime has finally decided that this is unsustainable. The 2023 elections, SADC and the AU condemned the process as flawed and illegal. And the regime, the only way they could avoid this is now saying, now from now on, the president will not be elected by the people. He will be elected by elected parliamentarians. Rigging within a constituency is infinitely easier than rigging at a national level. That is the essence of this, why Zanu PF is pushing through this amendment bill. But the important thing, like I said, it is designed to deny the people a meaningful say in the governance of the country. I said at the beginning in 1980, the people never exercised their right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. It was not truly one man, one vote. But what we are seeing now is that diluted vote being diluted even more, where the people are now being denied the vote. That is essentially it. If there was any disguise that Zimbabwe, Zanu PF was a dictatorship, this amendment takes off that disguise completely. If Zanu PF was a wolf in sheep's clothing in 1980, I think the wolf is casting away the disguise. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
You know, the Zimbabwe situation has always been, you know, that the international community have stood by us, even in our moments of madness. They have stuck with us in the hope that one day we will finally come to our senses. And unfortunately, I think we are still far. It's still to dawn to us that what we are doing is horribly wrong. And what we are doing, I mean, participating in rigged elections, is not the best solution for us. And we have been told so. After the 2023 elections, SADC would not let the election go. The happenings of the election were well documented, well reported, and the report was adopted. And SADC called for an extraordinary summit, where after the summit we saw a shaken and sweaty Emmerson Mnangagwa. Zanu PF has been warned. You cannot continue with these disputed elections. They have been told. The international community has tightened the rope and are pulling Zanu PF to order. A lot of people do not see this, but this is exactly why Zanu PF has taken this stance to try and wriggle out of the grip. All the recalls that happened with the Chavangu saga, the whole, it's all because of rigged elections. Zanu PF hold on power was loosening. The observers, SADC, AU, and many others were telling it direct to Zanu PF's face, including South Africa, were telling Zanu PF, you cannot continue with rigging elections. And now, for me, I think this had put Zimbabweans at an advantage. But because Zimbabweans, they do not want to think for themselves and would rather follow whoever individual they support, no matter how foolish their reasoning or their scheme is, they just will follow, has put us at a very, very big disadvantage and a frustrating position for both SADC and all the other observers who are trying to help us. So, in essence, what I'm trying to say is, help has always been there. We have just been so blind and naive and gullible that we have failed to see that help was there. And now, here we are at a point where Zanu PF wants to take everything away from us. I think this is the time where we need to stand up and now focus and say, if we are going to be talking about unity, we need unity of purpose. And the purpose, the primary reason Zimbabwe is a failed state is rigged election. So I say, if there are not going to be any reforms, there should be no kind of election happening in Zimbabwe. That way we are going to force Zanu PF into a GNU. And once we have a GNU, hopefully now, we will elect a competent set of individuals that will see that the reforms are implemented. That's the only solution. That's the only solution. Thank you.
I started with a biblical quotation. Behold, I sent you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. As a nation, we have to admit it to ourselves that Zanu PF are mere mortals, just like you and me. Why we have allowed them to ride over the nation roughshod for 46 years is our problem. It's because we have failed to be shrewd as snakes. The world is not forgiving for those who fail themselves. As a people, we cannot deny that the 46 years we never had the opportunity to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. We did, and we wasted it. We can end this Zanu PF dictatorship if we apply ourselves. One of the issues that we have raised on this platform again and again is the problem of people participating in a flawed electoral process. A process they've been warned is flawed, it's illegal. The only logical thing to do is for you to withdraw. And they've been conned to participate because they believed people like Chamisa's idiotic lies that he has plugged vote rigging loopholes. This is what got us where we are. And until we wake up and become as shrewd as snakes, the dictatorship will remain. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.